All right, hey, it's Eric Arnold here in the Politics Barn, wee hours of Tuesday, July 11th. We got to do a Politics Barn episode because there's no sports. We're on the baseball all-star break, the worst 4 days of the year. And here we are, happens once a year, so we got to go through it. Daryl, I believe Daryl Turner asked a question, am I done with the baseball videos? Probably. Thank your lucky stars have been on a losing streak. We were up like something stupid crazy, like 30, almost 40 units around the beginning of May. And now we're barely up 10. So it's just been we've been sinking faster than Richard Stockton Rush has been sinking. He's the guy that sank in the submarine, in case you missed it. But we're hoping to have a big second half, reset what we're doing, what have you. But at any rate, Politics Barn, what is there to talk about? Well, of course, you got the Biden corruption. That never goes away. You never run out of, I guess if you're an undertaker, you never run out of customers, and you never run out of Biden corruption. So we'll talk about that. There was a Supreme Court decision that was relatively significant, that being the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and North Carolina. And then there was also a federal judge issued an injunction, I guess, in the Missouri-Louisiana Attorney General suing the federal government for their collusion with big tech to censor, basically, conservative voices. So there was that lawsuit has yielded some fruit. So we'll get to that. Well, let's talk Gal Luft. Gal Luft. G-A-L, first name, L-U-F-T. Not a long name, strange name. Apparently the guy is an Israeli United States citizen. He styles himself as, let me get this right, the co-director for the last 20 years of the Institute of the Analysis of Global Security, or something like that. Institute for the Analysis of Global Security. It's I guess a Maryland-based think tank. Institute for the Analysis of Global Security. No, I have no idea what that means either. It's like these names are so damn stupid. It's like, why don't you just say what you mean? I'm an influence peddler. I'm into the oil and gas business, or I'm into aerospace, or I'm into the defense industry. What does that mean? That's just like some fancy title. It doesn't mean a goddamn thing. So, more of the same. So this guy apparently is the missing witness. If you've heard the House Republicans talking about a missing witness that's going to testify against the Bidens and has the inside scoop on where the bodies are buried as far as the Biden corruption. Well, apparently this is the guy. And he surfaced here last week. I told some of his story. I hope he told some and not all, because the story is, frankly, to the New York Post. He sat there in front of the camera like, one of those movie videos. To all of you watching this, if you are watching this, I am probably dead. And then he goes on to tell you who killed him, or who he thinks killed him. So, at any rate, he gave a 14-minute video to the New York Post. They wrote a pretty lengthy article. I'll put the link there in the comments. He looks like, basically he's saying, look, I was hooked up with this Chinese energy company that, I don't know, he admits to being with the Chinese energy company. I think his story is that he was with a think tank, a Chinese think tank, not his think tank, not the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, some other think tank that's in China, and I guess a totally neutral, altruistic, totally legal think tank in China. And they just happen to know that this CFC, this Chinese energy company that's linked up with the Chinese government, was doing business with the Bidens. So apparently that's how he knows that the Bidens were getting paid off by this Chinese energy company, which is hooked up with the Chinese government. So he's saying, hey, I had inside information that these Bidens are getting paid off to be foreign agents, basically, that the Chinese are paying these guys to influence the United States government to take actions in favor of their Chinese customers. Basically what we've all known the Bidens have been doing for probably ever, but at any rate, the latest guy saying, hey, I know about this, remember old Tony Bobulinski? So many years ago that first started the PoliticsBarn? Whatever happened to that guy? Nothing. So, he's basically just echoing what poor old Tony Bobulinski said so many years ago. So he is under indictment. Apparently, he was arrested in February of this year. 7 counts of bullshit, blah, 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 failing to register as a foreign agent, trying to traffic guns to countries where guns are not allowed to be trafficked to. I guess he was trying to hook up a sale from China to Kenya, or China to, was it the Libyans? I forget. At any rate, so they've arrested this guy. Now, to hear Luft tell his story, he was arrested to shut him up. In other words, hey, I met with the Department of Justice in, I believe he says, March of 2019 in Brussels. That he met with 6 people, names, as far as agents, whatever lawyers the DOJ sent over there. He met with them to let them know that, hey, Joe Biden is corrupt as a $3 bill. Here's my evidence. Go and investigate. Now, of course, nothing happened. Shazam there, gal Luft. But nothing happened. And then now, of course, that Biden won the White House, the Luft leak, if you will, him wandering around out there telling his tale of corruption and crime, well, Biden's going to put an end to that. So he's going to arrest this guy, and he has. He was arrested in Cyprus in February of this year. He posted bail, and he jumped bail. So the guy's a fugitive. He's wanted by the United States government for numerous felonies. He challenged in his little interview there, he said, why doesn't the DOJ make my indictment, the charges against me, why don't they make it public? And that's a good point. And some of the stuff he's being charged with is ancient, like 2016. So you got to wonder, what's that about? Well, the DOJ has done that. Today, Monday, or yesterday, Monday the 10th of July, they did publish their little news release detailing the charges against Luft. Now, there's some details in there. A lot of it's vague. Some of it looks like there could be proof that perhaps this guy is guilty. In other words, he's using the kind of criminal terminology that, you might find on a Hunter Biden laptop, where they're using code words like toys to refer to weaponry, and talking about how, oh, well, maybe we can conceal the origin of the oil is not necessarily Iranian. We'll say it came from the United Arab Emirates. How about that? You know, that sort of stuff. It's like, well, that seems kind of damning there, Dr. Luft. So, you know, again, to recap, we got Gail Luft. Dr. Gail Luft is saying he has inside knowledge that the Bidens are mobbed up, that they're corrupt, they're as crooked as, you know, whatever you want to call it. And the Biden Justice Department saying Luft is the criminal. What I think is that Luft is the criminal. I mean, I'm looking at this guy's bio, and I can't figure out what the hell this guy does. You know, it seems to me he's simply an influence peddler, which makes perfect sense. You know, in other words, let's look at what's the story from the, how to say this, from a Democrat perspective, from the most favorable way to spin this for the Democrats, for Joe Biden. So here you got Luft, who certainly seems to be an influence peddler, and he's saying that Joe Biden was involved in all this with me. And Hunter Biden, of course, too. So, you know, the guy definitely has knowledge of this arena. Now, the question is, can this guy bring any kind of proof forward that'll mean anything? And really, God, it just doesn't matter if he does, because who are you going to present it to? I mean, that's another thing that I find curious about Luft's story, in that Luft clearly is a mover and a shaker. He's clearly a player. He's deep state, if you want to say that. And he's saying he, in all innocence, because he wanted to be a good citizen, in March of 2019 went to the DOJ voluntarily and presented this evidence of the Biden corruption. I think you're leaving some things out here, Dr. Luft. You know, my guess is he was probably already under surveillance and investigation. Probably this was some kind of ploy or something just to try to advantage himself. I highly doubt that a player in that arena would just jump out of the goodness of their heart because they have the American citizenry's best interests at heart. They've got me. They're thinking of me, the American citizen. And he's saying, you know what? Joe Biden's a criminal and he could be elected president. Oh no, I can't be involved in that. It's like, give me a break. This guy's involved in the exact same goddamn thing that Biden was involved in. They're in the same arena. So I don't know why all of a sudden Luft, out of the goodness of his heart, would just jump out and say, that's the bad guy. I have nothing to do with anything that guy's involved in. Really? Then how do you know he's a bad guy? You know, the only way Luft would know that Biden's corrupt and mobbed up is he's involved in the same business that Biden was. He's a Biden business partner, for Christ's sakes. So, you know, I think Luft is guilty, which is why I believe his story about Biden. The only thing I don't believe about his story is that he's innocent. No, he's as guilty as John Dillinger, but that's who the people are that have knowledge of other criminal activity. The criminals themselves. So, you know, does Luft have any evidence? And who are you going to present it to? You know, again, the fact that Luft, you know, to hear his story, he naively believed that the FBI and the Department of Justice would investigate. Investigate who? Joe Biden, a likely future United States president? I mean, come on now. You're deep state. You don't really believe that. You're not that stupid. Dr. Luft is simply not that stupid. So, no, unbelievable. His story, as far as him being innocent is unbelievable, which is why I believe the rest of it. He's as dirty as any of them, and that's why he knows that the Bidens are dirty. He's trying to get the word out there to save his ass. Now, is he just making it up? Is he just totally making shit up? No, I don't think so. I mean, were it all by himself in a vacuum, yeah, maybe I'd say, oh, this guy's just making shit up to try to save his ass. But, here we have all this other stuff. We got the laptop, which of course is real. We've always known it was real. The Democrats lied about it and covered it up. So, right there that they know there's dirty stuff on there. Why would they have covered it up otherwise? So they know it's real. They know it's damning. They know it has multiple crimes on it. That's why they covered it up. Gary Shapley, or is it Shapley? IRS whistleblower. This is a guy who was deeply involved in the Hunter Biden investigation at the IRS. The IRS has been looking at this guy because all this money is flowing into all these Hunter Biden companies and shell companies and holding companies, and they're trying to figure out, did you pay your taxes? And of course the conclusion was, no, you didn't, because you're a criminal. You don't pay taxes when you're a criminal. That's part of the fun of being a criminal. So Hunter Biden, Shapley, let's say Shapley. All right, Shapley. Gary Shapley is alleging that, I believe the number was in the teens, that some $16-17 million of overseas money had flowed in, of which they owed, $2-3 million worth of taxes that weren't paid, which apparently doesn't rate a felony somehow in this plea bargain that the Biden Injustice Department has worked out. So he's going to get just a slap on the wrist and never see a day behind bars. And Shapley is now blowing the whistle and saying, wait a minute, I just want to let everybody know what really happened here. Shapley is also saying that his boss, which I believe was Weiss, I get confused with the bad guys. It seems like there are a couple Weisses. I guess there's a Weissman. He was a bad guy in the Mueller investigation. Now there's a Weiss that apparently was the Department of Justice guy in Delaware or something that allegedly had full authority to investigate. Now there's, what's happening now is Weiss is saying to us at this point, oh yeah, I had full authority. Now at the time, what he was telling his own people, Shapley, was, I don't have authority to do that. We can't do that. So, he's lying to somebody. I mean, it is plausible that he could have simply been lying to his own people in that, he just told them, I don't have authority. And then, of course, the other people are going to lie too. And they're going to say, well, sure. It could be one of those things where you don't have to have it in writing with that sort of thing. That's simply understood. In other words, you're investigating the president's son, and it's certainly going to link to the president of the United States, the corruption. And you're a small fry in the Justice Department of the guy, like your fifth level supervisor, is the president. You're going to implicate him. That doesn't need a meeting to have that. In other words, that's understood. If you try to bring those charges, you're a dead man. Whether that means you're dead with your career, you've committed career suicide, or you've committed suicide, period. Or maybe a family member, they committed suicide perhaps. So Weiss could just say, I don't have authority to make that decision. And of course, all the other guys are saying, oh yeah, we told him he had total authority. Knowing it's all a lie, that of course, that he brought those charges, that he would have been squashed like a bug immediately. those charges would have never gotten out the door. They simply would have never gotten out the door. So whatever. If you got people pointing fingers, and really, I don't know there's a lot we, the people, the Republicans in the House, could do about it, frankly. You could try to make the case that there's a cover-up, that real crime happened here, and you simply ignored it out of political considerations, which is obviously what happened. I don't know, though. I mean, you're going to have to prove the underlying crime, and that's pretty hard when the people you're going after are actively shoving the evidence under the rug, and they have control of the evidence. So you're going to need a hell of a lot more whistleblowers bringing forth a hell of a lot more evidence to prove a cover-up. Otherwise, they'll just say, we can cover up anything. We're just goddamn incompetent. We couldn't prove it. We couldn't make a heads or tails out of 117 holding companies. We couldn't figure it out. We're just stupid that way. And of course, they're not stupid that way. They didn't want to figure it out. But, that's going to be their story, prove otherwise. And it'll be damn hard for Republicans to prove otherwise. So, you got Shapley, he's accusing them. I think there's some other evidence or whistleblower out there. I think this one's been out there a long time. I believe a whistleblower came out years ago, and one of the problems with not making videos as often anymore is mice have overrun the PoliticsBarn studio. Believe me, I can see the evidence. And they're we got an audience in here tonight. It's a little spooky. Judging by the evidence, it may be beyond mice. Certainly rats, perhaps, but definitely big-ass mice. So I probably ought to have a broom or a gun or something. But at any rate, where were we? Form 1023, I guess, is an FBI form when these guys, take a witness statement or something. So apparently some whistleblower from the Ukraine from way back in the Burisma days called up the FBI and said, hey, I was involved in this. I paid him off. I'm the guy that paid him. Something words to that effect. They're tapes. I taped the guy. So apparently there are tapes out there floating around. Who knows if that's true or not, where Biden's basically admitting to doing favors for Burisma. And, of course, the FBI just stuck it in a drawer. If you haven't figured it out already, the whole Department of Justice is as corrupt as any organization, any corrupt thing you could think of. Professional wrestling corrupt, the Roman Senate corrupt. It's as bad as anything ever has been. It's just, it has to be abandoned, destroyed, just burn to the ground and start over. Fire everybody, and just start over. There's no hope for that organization. The FBI, the CIA, I'd probably do that. The NSA, boy, you want to burn it all down because it's as corrupt as it gets. We don't live in a free country anymore. If you haven't figured that out yet, at some point, well, I don't know if you will or not. I don't know how smart you are. Honestly, I don't. So, maybe you haven't figured it out yet, but we do not live in a free country. And some of this is not new. I mean, really, let's not delude ourselves. This all happened yesterday. It's getting much worse. But J. Edgar Hoover founded the FBI. This guy blackmailed presidents. Everyone knew it. They named the building after this fuck, this panty-waist homosexual fuck. So, I'm sorry, that's right, I used homosexual as a pejorative there. Sorry. But he was a bastard. He was a bad guy. And he has a building named after him. That's how sick and decayed this country is. So the FBI, its origins, all the way back, were corrupt. Let's not forget the founder of the deep state, or at least the guy who brought it to everybody's attention, Dwight Eisenhower. Have we forgotten this? This was his farewell address in around, let's say, 1960-ish. I don't know if it was 61, 60, whatever. But he said, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex. You could just insert the word deep state, because it's all the same damn thing. He could have used the words deep state, and he would have been spot on. So, and then when he said it, everybody was like, what's that mean? What? Oh, I guess he just means we don't want to let the military get too big. I think he meant a hell of a lot more than just the military. He meant the CIA, the FBI, these intelligence community, and now those places pretty much run this country. And we let them, basically, because what can we do? What can we little people do? So we take it, How do they run the country? Well, they censor our speech. A story like Hunter Biden's laptop, they covered that up and changed the course of an election. What consequences were there for them to lie like that? None. Absolutely none. So, of course they can do this stuff with impunity. Nobody can touch these people. So, yeah, we don't live in a free country anymore. So I have very little faith in all this evidence that's coming out that Joe Biden's crooked, which anyone that has a functioning brain knew years ago, many years ago, that this guy was a crooked crook, a total scumbag. I mean, you don't have to, it's not that complicated. Look at how this guy lives. Look at the palaces that this guy lives in, and he's been a public servant his whole damn career. Where did you get the money to buy these palaces? It's not that complicated. So, I read an article in the New York Post, I think it was Friday. Goodwin, I believe was the author, an opinion piece. Basically one of these sunshiny hope and pray pieces that the walls are closing in on Joe Biden. Bullshit! Bullshit! The walls aren't closing in on Joe Biden. He's not going anywhere. Unless he dies, and then, well, if the first thing that's going to happen, they're going to take him feet first out of wherever he is, and then he's going straight to hell, which I think will be fantastic. I only wish I could be there to watch it. But no, he isn't going anywhere. So I just don't see, that the Democrats, they're making noise. Well, maybe we should get somebody younger, and it's getting late early for that sort of thing. It's already July, and I just don't see it. I just don't see that the Bidens are going to allow it. For one thing, if they allow that sort of thing, they lose control of the Department of Justice. What is to prevent the successor from throwing them under the bus if they think it'll advance their interests? In other words, let's say Gavin Newsom comes in, and I'm sure he's got his own skeletons that he wants covered up, and maybe he needs to make some political points with the spongy moderate Republicans or something, and says, all right, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you Joe Biden's head. You guys can hold it up and walk around and tell your base that you did something, and they'll think you're great. Meanwhile, you can protect my ass, and we'll make some under the table deals that protect me. New President Gavin Newsom. What's to prevent him from doing that? What allegiance does he have to Joe Biden? None. So Joe Biden can't take that chance. He can't just step down and go, "Oh, I'm too old. You're right. I give up." I mean, have you met Joe Biden? For Christ's sakes. Does it look like this guy is going to step down from anything? That this guy's ego would let him do that? Have you met this guy? Give me a break. So he ain't going anywhere, unfortunately for us. The only hope that this country doesn't completely go down the shithole is that somehow we beat him. Somehow we beat him in 24, and I guess we're stuck here with Donald Trump. Somehow Donald Trump has to unite all us people that despise Joe Biden and, and anyone else that has an ounce of common sense. I don't know how that's going to happen. Donald Trump, the great uniter. Well, it's not all doom and gloom. The Supreme Court, in the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and North Carolina case, excuse me, ruled 6-3, that these universities can't consider race anymore as part of their admissions, that they can't discriminate, to not put too fine a point on it. So you're saying, big deal. For example, I read an article that North Carolina is already making plans to simply allow certain disadvantaged students to come in for free, or words to that effect. In other words, they'll just find some other way to discriminate. Harvard, same way, I'm sure. It's what's really changed. Well, one thing it could change, possibly. And I read this and I thought, I don't know if that's true, but I choose to believe it because it makes me feel better. Right now, in case you've missed it, you know that every corporation in America is just wrapping their arms around this ESG bullshit, this woke crap that is just that nonsense bullshit crap that is usually nonsensical. Bullshit like men can be women, women can be men, men can breastfeed, all this nonsense. And they're just grabbing onto it with both hands. And you say, why? For one thing, it's not all that popular. I would wager the majority of the country, the majority of their customers are not down with this woke bullshit that minorities, whether it be Hispanics, African Americans, what have you, are always disadvantaged. They're systemically disadvantaged. They're never going to have a fair shake. They're always going to be behind the eight ball, no matter what. Well, that's crap. That's just absolute bullshit. And most smart people know this. Most people with any common sense know this. But these companies are just shoving it in your face, that kind of racism. They're just shoving it right in your face. And you're saying, why? Well, one of the reasons is because 3 of the largest sources of money in this country are totally controlled by Marxist wokesters. That being these Hugent bank/hedge funds on Wall Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. These are trillion-dollar monsters and they're controlled by wokesters that do not care about profit and loss. They care about control, political power, and advancing Marxism and wokesterism. That's what they care about. So what does that mean? In other words, how does this affect, say, AnheuserBusch, to pick a name? Why did AnheuserBusch are they that stupid, you say to yourself? No, they're not that stupid. They know who their customers are, and they're not transgender men who are pretending to be women. There might be a handful of them, but they know damn well who buys their beer. And by and large, it's not men pretending to be women. So why did they do what they did? Because they feel pressure from these Hugent bank hedge funds. What's that mean? What pressure can they exert on a company that makes beer? These companies control pension funds. They control giant ETFs. In other words, let's say you go to your broker and say, you know what, I don't want to pick individual stocks. I just want you to put my money into some kind of investment vehicle that mirrors the S&P 500. Well, the people that make these vehicles, make these investment funds, are these guys. You know, there's probably a handful of others, but the biggest ones are these guys. So they control trillions of dollars of investments, and they get to pick and choose who they're investing in. In other words, if I'm controlling, say, the California Teachers Fund, I'm BlackRock, and I'm making this up because I don't know if they have that account or not, but they have ones like that. So, all right, where are we going to put all the teachers' money? You know, well, I don't know. Anheuser-Busch, let's check the metrics. And these guys keep track of this stuff. They really are not down with being woke. Well, let's punish them. No one knows what kind of rate of return we turn in, especially when our competitors, State Street and Vanguard, are doing the exact same thing we are. So we really don't have to answer to anybody. We can just simply not invest in Budweiser with no recriminations. We just won't bet on them. Well, that money then doesn't go into the company, Anheuser-Busch, and their stock doesn't go up. Their stock then goes down when they don't get that institutional money. So these companies, these board of directors, they pay attention to their stock prices. Believe me, they do. That's part of, if not their only job, one of the biggest jobs they have. What is our stock price? What is our stock price? Why is our stock price down? So they pay attention to this. So knowing that part of whether they're meeting I can't even remember what the hell ESG stands for. Environmental Social Governance? Some bullshit like that. It's like your social credit card score, the thing they do in China that we all know is coming here. This is part of it. So this is how it's being operated. Well, at any rate, the Supreme Court case outlawing this kind of discrimination also possibly could go towards this kind of nonsense where a BlackRock or a Vanguard is refusing to invest in certain companies who are decidedly anti-woke. Well, that's discrimination. That's discrimination, and that's what the court found to be illegal. So it's possible that this could start generating some lawsuits where some people that are being ignored by the institutional investors because they're anti-woke may come in and say, wait a minute now, why will no one look at our company here simply because we refuse to bend the knee to Black Lives Matters? And now the law is on their side. Now, of course, that would take years to wind its way through the laws, the legal system, past all the Democrat-controlled circuit courts and whatnot, and eventually find its way to the Republican-controlled Supreme Court. But it's better than nothing. Let's put it that way. It's nice to have that arrow in our quiver. It wasn't there a month ago. Now you got that there saying, hey, at least we have some law here that says you can't discriminate. And obviously, the scheme I just described to you, where they're forcing Bud Light to be woke, where they're holding a dollar and cents gun to the head of these corporations, forcing them to be woke, that's discriminatory. It's discriminatory. It's obvious. So we'll see how that goes. Lastly, Missouri, Louisiana attorney generals had sued some years ago. I don't think it was years ago. I believe what the genesis of this was when Elon Musk bought Twitter. He turned out the internal communications between his company and the United States government. And it was pervasive. It was disgusting. It was convincing. It was obvious. The United States government was contacting left and right the tech companies, certainly Twitter, and we know damn well that they were contacting all the others as well, Facebook, whatever else is out there. I'm drawing a blank, Google, YouTube. So all these communications, if they were going to Twitter, they were going everywhere else too. And they're telling them, take this down, take that down. We don't like this. We don't like what that guy said. Suppress this, censor that. And of course, the tech giants did it. I don't know, you had to really tell these tech giants to do it just because that's what they wanted to do anyway. But, perhaps they didn't have enough personnel to catch every last free speech item that was out there. So they, had the assistance of the federal government in there going, oh, don't forget that one over there. Make sure you get that. You missed a spot. So we all knew that was going on. We knew what was going on as it was happening. I mean, we had to be a fool not to know that. But of course, no one listens to us. So it was happening. It did happen. The Attorney General of Louisiana and Missouri filed suit saying, this is illegal. This is just black letter law illegal. This is suppressing the First Amendment. The government cannot be involved in this sort of thing. Well, a federal judge, Trump appointee, of course, doesn't matter. He agreed. He issued a very long decision saying, this is just outrageous. This is wrong. The federal government cannot do this. Basically enjoining the federal government from having contact with these tech giants as far as content goes. Now, the Biden administration appealed to the same judge, who of course said, oh, let me think, was I wrong? No, I wasn't wrong. But now, what'll happen, of course, is they'll venue shop. They'll find a appellate court stacked with Democrats. I'm sure this decision will be overturned probably around, I'd say, March of next year, giving them plenty of time to censor to their heart's content leading up to the 24 election. And really, there'll be nothing we can do about it because there'll be simply the calendar will be too short to get it before the Supreme Court before the 24 election. It is what it is. I mean, for the moment, there's law that says the government can't censor. Will that stop them? Of course not. Of course not. Look, the government can do anything. They are doing anything. They're just doing anything they want right now and just laughing in our faces. And there's nothing we can do about it other than vote these sons of bitches out of office. That's the only remedy we have. And even then, to vote these sons of bitches out of office, we would have to get 60% to win because of the cheating that they do. So it's relatively hopeless from where I'm sitting. I'm not optimistic. I'm just hoping my viewership stays low so they don't come arrest me. You know, in a way, I don't. Well, hell, I was going to say something and I'm wrong. You know, I was thinking my wife might wake up and become a Republican if they march me off in handcuffs, but she'll just blame me. Well, you must have said something. Yeah, I said that the government's corrupt as a $3 bill. Well, you locked me up. Misinformation. Someday we'll have to make a list of all the conspiracy theories that have happened over the last 3 years that have all, turned out to be 100% true. I would say our batting average is so much higher than the Democrats, than the government's batting average as far as what's been true and what hasn't been true. Oh yeah, that's right, Donald Trump, he colluded with Russia. Oh, wow. They ran with that for 3 years and nothing happened to them. Not a goddamn thing. Not a thing happened to them. But they want you to believe now that they're all on the up and up. And you can trust the Justice Department and you can trust the FBI when they're out there now trying to put the leading candidate for presidency on the Republican ticket in jail. You want to make sure you can trust the Justice Department, the same people that told you for, 4 years that Donald Trump had colluded with the Russians, and at the end of the day, they had exactly no evidence whatsoever that that was true, because it wasn't. But we can trust them now. Absolutely. They're not lying to us now. I could go on and on and on, but that's enough. So, hey, we'll talk again. We'll never run out of corruption to talk about, sadly. So, I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech if no one else does. And we'll talk again.